And let's talk about this Ukrainian money hole. So Ukraine is an absolute money hole. And what we're learning now, of course, about the weapons. So the Financial Times out today with a big report about the concern among NATO and EU leaders about all of the weapons and where they are actually going. So NATO and EU sound alarm over risk of Ukraine weapons smuggling.
But not the U.S.
Right.
They're not listed here.
Well, to be fair about it, remember a few weeks ago, CNN actually covered that angle from the United States side of this, where the Pentagon was admitting that once these weapons enter into Ukraine, the United States has no accounting of them. They basically disappear.
Yes.
So now, according to the Financial Times, NATO and EU states are pushing for better tracking of weapons supplied to Ukraine in response to fears that criminal groups are smuggling them out of the country and onto Europe's black market. So here is the Financial Times. Philip, you can take my laptop here. Since Russia launched its war against Ukraine, Western states have pledged more than $10 billion in military support. So this is the $10 billion that's not coming from the United States, where we've sent hundreds of billions of dollars.
Trillions,
right?
yes.
Yeah, to Ukraine. From portable rocket launchers, armored vehicles, to rifles and vast amounts of ammunition. A number of NATO member states are now discussing with Kiev some form of tracking system or a detailed inventory list for weapons supplied to Ukraine. Two Western officials briefed on the talks told the Financial Times. Way to start now.
Ever heard of RFID?
You know what's kind of crazy?
Yeah.
You know what's crazy is if you think about it, like think of grocery stores and how they have to take care of inventory and keep track of like what's coming in, what's going out, and how accurate they are, and how it's like the whole business revolves around that because they have to order product. They can do that there, but yet weapons that can decimate civilization, we don't need to track that.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I mean, think about how much we spend on these things, right? Millions of dollars for just one of these pieces of equipment. And you mean to tell me we don't have anything that knows where this thing is?
Something a little more powerful than an air tag?
Yeah, you slap an Apple AirTag on it.
Well, that's short range. You have to be within.
And then you'd be walking around with our iPhones. Like, where did I put that?
I don't think you want that.
Where did I put that javelin? Is it under the couch again? I can't find that javelin missile that the U.S. sent to me. I can't find it.
Can you go back to the Financial Times piece and go down to the quote, right? Because there's a quote of an expert. Who is it? Just
all weapons land in southern Poland? Is this the...
This one, yes. All these weapons land in southern Poland, get shipped to the border, and then are just divided up into vehicles to cross. Trucks, vans, sometimes private cars, you guys.
Private cars. Yes, I am here.
Can I just get in line and pull up in my Volvo and be like, sure, I'll take a tank.
Yes, my name is Sergey. I am here with my truck. Please put those javelins in my truck. I am driving to front. Really? Like that's literally what's happening? People are renting cars and just picking up U.S. weapons as they arrive in Poland.
Now, we remind you that the State Department acknowledges that factions of the Ukrainian army are actually guilty of human rights abuse. So we don't really mind just flooding them with equipment that we don't know what it's going to do, even though we collectively agree that there are problematic factions inside this military.
So one of the journalists, G.H. Eliasson, is a journalist who's been living in eastern Ukraine for years. He's been there before anyone else, actually, covering this story. And he talks about these arms and the concerns about where these things are going, which is to the black market, sold for pennies on the dollar. But it doesn't matter because they're still making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Listen.
If you look at the Caesar artillery system that France has provided Ukraine, Ukrainian soldiers are selling it to Donbass army members. So the system that costs over $7 million has an actual battlefield price tag of $120,000. Now, this is one of many examples of Ukraine doing this. By now, with the amount of money that the U.S., Europe have provided, the amount of weapons that they've brought in, Ukraine should not have the manpower available to be able to actually staff these systems. And yet they're asking for more and more and more.
Yeah, more and more and more. And now they're running out of military staff to staff these weapons. So now they are enlisting women. So women are now going to be on the front lines in Ukraine. They're running out of men. So now they're just going to start getting the women.
You know, remember the story back a while ago where they were saying any man that was trying to leave, they were getting them back in. Now they're just going to let the children go, and men and women have to go back and fight?
Yeah, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, they're conscripting,
or I wonder if it means now women can no longer leave, where the borders were open to women since the beginning of the conflict in February. And we saw all of these images of women leaving with their children and their parents, right? So is it the case now that women can no longer leave since they are conscripted too?
Unbelievable. And it's also important to remember that as Ukraine retreats, and they've been leaving the Donbas region, they've been coming out of eastern Ukraine, and Russia has solidified that area, and they announced last week victory in that area. They're leaving behind these weapons. So the ones that aren't destroyed, they're leaving behind. And then whose hands are they falling into? Russians.
Good hands.
Well, I mean, they're falling into Russian hands. I mean, I don't make any assessment.
Right, we're not saying good or bad.
Yeah, but they're falling into people's hands that are going to use them likely. So
At
Russia,
least that's what we think. If we can't track them, who knows? It's
yeah, that's a good point. So who knows?
This is like a perfect Monty Python skit. It's like you're going through Europe and there's a guy in his backyard and is like, "Is that a cruiser missile? No, it isn't. It looks like when I see the tip. No, it isn't.
No, it isn't. No, nothing to see here.
You don't see that.
Nope.
You
Wink,
do
wink,
not
nudge,
see
nudge. Know
that.
what I mean?
I'm
Wink,
not
wink,
dead.
nudge. Anyway, so these M777s, this video released today shows a U.S. M777 wrecked, right, as the retreating army. Sorry, it's a little squished here when we do it out of the player. It looks like that, but so this one's a wrecked. But imagine how many are not, as they are retreating and in the hands of the Russian army now. The Daily Caller, though, has a bigger concern about this. This is arguably, I don't know if there's any bigger concern, maybe the military piece of this, but the financial piece of this, that the Daily Caller points out, is that we are sending the money that we're sending to Ukraine is winding up in the hands of corrupt politicians to the tune of billions of dollars into the hands of corrupt politicians, which is, stunning. Well, we knew this was the case, though, right? This was happening for years in Ukraine. The Pandora Papers revealed this many, many years ago.
Yes, and it makes sense, right? Because if you don't know what's going to be left of the government, will there be any accounting for what you do or do not take if you are a person of power, right?
Right. So
who's to know, who's to hold you accountable? Ukraine, as we know it, will be unrecognizable in the next few years. At least, will the government have any type of audit? Will there be any sort of business as usual, right? Is it safer? Although the United States media did acknowledge that this was a problem as far back as 2016, right? And again, the U.S. State Department's reports on Ukraine do still show government corruption is a big problem there, right? Internal government corruption. That means the people who were elected and the people who work around them. The United States knows this.
So in 2016, this is the article you're referring to. This is a Reuters piece in 2016. You can take my screen. Yeah, there it is. And then I have a little bit more deeply here. But here's the article. Ukrainians shocked as politicians declare vast wealth, right, from 2016. And let's go a little deeper. Anti-corruption reform requiring senior Ukrainian officials to declare their wealth online has exposed a vast difference between the fortunes of politicians and those they represent. Some declared millions of dollars in cash. Others said they owned fleets of luxury cars, expensive Swiss watches, diamond jewelry, large tracts of land, revelations that could further hit public confidence in the authorities in Ukraine. Guess what? The average salary, look at this. The average salary in Ukraine, just over $200 per month. And yet these guys have private planes, $1.2 million in U.S. dollars, $460,000 in euros, collection of luxury watches. You remember, of course, that the United States has been funneling millions, if not billions of dollars into Ukraine for years. Right? So, of course, these guys were getting wealthy. And as we learned in the Pandora Papers, Vladimir Zelensky himself has gotten extremely wealthy. So, yes, the Daily Caller and these watchdog groups should be concerned, and government officials should be concerned that the billions we are sending to this area is going into corrupt politicians' hands. After all, Ukraine
I think it's pretty pathetic.
Isn't Ukraine ranked as the most corrupt European
One of the top most
one of the
corrupt
top
governments
two
in
most corrupt governments.
Yes.
What were
And
you
the
gonna
guy,
say?
if the guy's got that much money, why is he still wearing t-shirts?
You know, it's now it's like
It's hot.
now it's hot there. During the
Well, yeah,
winter,
now
though,
it is,
during the winter he was constantly in combat, right? He was like literally taking phone calls while like firing guns. So he had to be in a t-shirt. It's
While
less restrictive.
professional photographers were around taking his picture in stairways and stuff.
Right.
Well, it's a show of solidarity, you know, kind of like sports, like baseball coaches dress out,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. So now,
Like when our presidents loosen their tie a little bit.
Sure.
Right.
Do you ever wonder why hockey coaches and football coaches don't dress out, like show up to the sidelines in full-on padding and stuff?
yeah, it's probably a little cumbersome. So now the Ukrainian military today, the Ukrainian government is now asking for $9 billion a month from here on out. So Ukraine asking for $9 billion in monthly aid. For the next few months, we have to receive $9 billion per month instead of the $5 billion that you're currently sending us. It will be next to impossible for us to survive without these funds.
Okay.
Anything to say about this?
Wow.
I mean, anything?
I mean,
You
can
know,
I get some of that?
just 1 month of that would end homelessness in the United States. 1 month.
Yeah. Yeah, $20 billion would eliminate hunger in the United States. I mean, literally wipe away homelessness and hunger. You have people sleeping on, in tents across the United States underneath overpasses in California.
Philip, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say I want some of that. I mean, if they're going to give $9 billion to Ukraine per month, I mean, I'll take, a couple thousand a month. I'm fine. I'm
Just
not greedy.
Roll
Just
up
send
in
it
your
my way.
truck and
Right.
take some weaponry because I have a private car.
I'll take 2,000. I'll take 2,000 a month, and I want one of those French howitzers because I think that would look really good on my lawn.
Yeah, don't mess with that guy. He's got a French howitzer from the Ukrainian army.
I
And
wonder
you know
if
what's
there's
even
something I
scarier
would
is
want
there's
in there. Sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. There's absolutely no accounting for where this money's going, who's getting it. Like, is it going to the government? And then is the government doling it out to what? To the military? Is the government doling it out to the people? Like, where is this money going?
Good question. I mean, we saw stories where they're putting it on pallets, literally cash, and bringing it in. I mean, the same thing that happened in Iraq, right? And the same thing that happened in Afghanistan. Just here's pallets of cash. We're just printing it, and then we're going to drop it there for you guys to use however you see fit. So here's a pallet of cash for you.
Well, when you juxtapose that with how, Western governments are living right now, people who are living inside of these governments that are participating in the war, it will really set your hair on fire.
Yeah. Thank you so much for subscribing to our channel. We've been banned, we've been blocked, we've been censored. That's why we started our own website to stay connected with you for free.
That's right. So head on over to redacted.inc and make sure you're connected with us. You can sign up again at redacted.inc, not .com.